Gentlemen, welcome to our channel. If you, like me, do not support adultery and believes that cheaters should be fully responsible for their actions, then like this video and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Well, let's get started. I am currently 33 years old and happily married to my wife, who is 32 years old. We've been married for almost 2 years. But about 2 months ago, my wife informed me that she had received a friendship request from her ex-boyfriend, whom she dated about 9 years ago. He was her first love, but their relationship ended because of his constant infidelities, which caused her great pain. After their breakup, we crossed paths and in 2015 began our own relationship, which ended in marriage in June 2019. We are also proud parents of our son, who was born last June. This unexpected contact occurred in February or March of last year. It is important to note that I have always felt a sense of jealousy towards him, and we had an unspoken agreement that she would not contact him and would inform me if he contacted her. This arrangement arose as a result of our desire to be honest and open in our marriage, especially when it comes to issues related to trust. This situation could have jeopardized our marriage. My wife told me about the friendship request about 2-3 weeks after it appeared, despite our agreement to immediately tell each other about it. She convinced me that she had rejected the request, which at that moment somewhat eased my fears, since it seemed to be a minor problem. But just a week ago, driven by intuition, I logged into her Messenger account. It is worth saying that we both use common passwords and regularly, although infrequently, check each other's accounts on social networks. Looking through my wife's archived messages, I came across a missed call from her ex, which was made the day before at 1 o'clock in the morning. To my surprise, no one answered the call, but I was worried about something else, why she decided to hide it from me. I tried to remain calm and patient, expecting that eventually she would tell me about what had happened, but she never did. After 3 days of internal struggle, I could no longer bear the burden of uncertainty, and then I decided to talk to her about the missed call. Unfortunately, our conversation quickly turned into a heated argument, largely due to my emotional reaction. In her defense, she admitted that she saw a missed call but claimed that she did not know that it was him. I was furious that the missed call got into the message archive, and this led to a whole day of quarreling between us. I couldn't understand why she decided not to tell me about it, but to hide it. She categorically denied any mistakes on her part. Trying to clarify the situation, I asked her to ask him why he called, but he said it was an erroneous call, and his answer seemed doubtful to me. How could he accidentally call from a Messenger account with which they have not communicated since 2012? To my disappointment, he called her again just 2 days ago, and when she didn't answer, he continued the conversation with a question message. I wonder why my wife doesn't answer his calls. Despite the fact that after our last quarrel, I tried to remain kind and calm, I can't help but wonder how he has the audacity to persistently call my wife for no apparent reason. Maybe my anxiety and tension in this matter are unnecessary or quite reasonable. Maybe I should look deeper into the situation. It's worth noting that her ex lives just 15 minutes away from our house where they both lived. We recently moved to the area. My wife and son arrived in September 2020, and I joined them a few months later in March. It is possible that such actions may lead to the fact that she'll become more secretive and cautious in her attempts to contact her ex. Instead, I want to get confirmation that she is indeed cheating. If she is really cheating, I will start the divorce process without any hesitation. We're still experiencing a honeymoon in our marriage, and if she's cheating at this early stage, I can only imagine how much worse it could get when we go through other stages, like the middle-age stage. Let me clarify that the last time they talked was in 2013, and they broke up in 2012. I recently found out that she deleted her ex on Facebook. In 2013, while they were studying together at medical college, she had another boyfriend. I was lucky enough to be a friend and classmate with both of them. In the end, their relationship ended because of his unworthy behavior, which was visible not only from her point of view, but also from my own remarks. At that time, he was more of a backup option for her. In 2015, about 6 months after the beginning of our relationship, we moved to a new stage. According to her, during a previous relationship with a classmate in 2013 year, her ex, her first love, fell ill while in the city. Despite her desire to break off relations with him, he constantly turned to her for help and medicines, as he was alone and could not get out of bed. To fulfill his request, she enlisted her cousin to deliver medicines. It should be noted that she did not tell her then-boyfriend about this incident. And, as far as I know, I am the only person who knows about it, except for her. Both her first love and her cousin played significant roles in her life. In 2015 year, when our connection became even stronger over the years, a romantic relationship began between us. But during this period, it became clear that I was more in love with her than she was with me. The second time he tried to contact her, I took the initiative and interrupted the conversation. We were sitting together in the back seat of the car. Her father was driving, and she had no choice but to confess since I had already witnessed the call. She didn't answer his call, but at that moment he decided to text her. I decided to talk to my wife and find out why she is not responding to her ex's messages. The last 3 days we were both unwell due to overwork, so we were at home. Accordingly, I had neither the strength nor the desire to actively monitor her actions as obsessively as before. At the moment, there have been no new connections from her ex, and I have not noticed any signs of betrayal or infidelity in her words or behavior. Perhaps I am to blame for my own lack of self-confidence. Considering recent events, it suddenly dawned on me today. When I first arrived in her hometown at the end of February, I missed her very much and initiated intimacy with her every day, and sometimes more often. But she often rejected my attempts, and intimacy did not happen more than once a week. Despite this, I persistently asked her about it every day, without ceasing. I distinctly remember one day when she made a remark hinting that I was addicted to intimacy, just a few minutes after our intimacy. This remark took me by surprise and perplexed me. I just remembered that the statement that I am addicted to intimacy was made on the day when we finally engaged in intimate life after a break of 3 or 4 weeks. Around this time, I began to offer her intimacy less often, about once a week, although there were still cases when she refused. Until today, I completely forgot about it. Currently, I have only suspicions, but I am too exhausted to be overly vigilant and meticulous in trying to identify possible problems. Currently, I work 5-7 days in a row, then return home to look after my son while she goes to work. We really changed our daily routine so as not to expose our son to unnecessary risk of infection. Instead of going home every 5-7 days, we alternate work duties. While one of us is working, the other stays at home, and then we switch roles. Such a scheme is allowed in the country where I live, in Asia. I am currently struggling with exposing emotional and physical infidelity and don't know what to do. This situation has been developing for several years in my marriage. As a result, he ended their affair, but my wife continued to pursue him for another year. Eventually, when this man realized that my wife was now living far away from me, he tried to resume the affair, but my wife eventually rejected these advances. I asked numerous questions trying to figure out the situation, but it's hard for me to fully trust her answers. Despite this, my wife claims that she loves me and never intended to leave me, even during infidelity. Despite this, I can only wonder why for 4 years she continued to brazenly cheat on me. Why did she continue to haunt him for an entire year? Throughout the 5 years of our relationship, it seemed that she paid more attention to the novel than to the development of our relationship. They even had a special song that symbolized their relationship. It was as if she rejected me and continued to maintain a relationship with her ex-man. In the end, she confessed to cheating, but only after she felt that my love for her was waning. I became emotionally detached, and the thought that I might lose what we had became unbearable for her. In January, when I told her about my plans to return home, she decided to end the affair. To prove her sincerity, she showed me all their correspondence, leaving no doubt about the sincerity of her words. Since the beginning of this year, she has harshly rejected him, despite his persistent attempts to restore their relationship. Currently, it is difficult for both of us to live normally, since neither of us is in a good emotional state. I cry all the time, but it seems that she cries even more often than I do. Just 3 days ago, she decided to quit her job, which is deeply regrettable. since she cannot help in caring for our child. Our communication basically boils down to the fact that she apologizes or expresses her love for me every 15 minutes when she manages to get close to me. It is very difficult for me to even be in her presence or have any physical contact with her. She pretends to be affectionate and tries to enter into intimate relations with me, even when she is visibly upset and depressed. Will this pain ever subside? Will I be able to find the strength to forgive her? I'm completely shattered because of all this. When she was in a state of depression, which lasted about a year, another man appeared. Now that the depression is over, I can't understand why the affair lasted so long. She says she never wanted to leave me, but admits that she had long-standing feelings for this other man, which she mentioned in her letter. For 2 years, they had an emotional affair, passionate kisses, every time she came to her childhood home, about once a month. During all this time, he persistently tried to seduce her, showering her with compliments. He admitted that kissing on the lips alone was not enough, as she had inner and outer beauty, which made her the most captivating of all he had ever met. Eventually, after 2 years, she succumbed to his advances, which led to a physical relationship. Since then, once a month, he stopped their relationship, and she naively believed every word he said, not suspecting that his true motivation was exclusively intimacy. His wife persistently tried to get him back for a whole year, but because of the pandemic, she could not come to her childhood home every month, although she continued to contact him by email in the hope of resuming their romance. In June 2020, when my wife returned to her hometown with our newborn son, he made another attempt to get in touch with her. Realizing the seriousness of her actions, she repented of her sins and repeatedly tried to cut off any ties with him. The last time they talked was in January, but he continues to get in touch through other channels, receiving a quick rejection from her. She also told me about these incidents. At first, she thought of removing all the evidence, but in the end, she refused to do so because she wanted to have proof that the affair really ended in case I revealed it. After they agreed not to communicate, another man persistently tried to contact her. Despite the fact that she works at the same hospital, she has made it clear that she wants nothing to do with him. Before leaving work, she took measures to ensure that the security guard did not allow him to her workplace, except in emergency cases in the emergency department. I personally saw evidence of this and even talked to the guard myself. This situation has greatly affected me, disrupting my sleep and appetite. I feel just awful. She's currently in a very difficult emotional state, so much so that I have difficulty convincing her to take a shower and clean up. She wiped away the tears that were flooding her face. She put everything into the framework of the deal as if all that needed to be done was just 5 minutes of conversation. I even promised to take a shower if you would talk to me. This is simply absurd. If you want me to behave like a normal person, then first promise that you will never leave me. I'm ready for anything, but I can't bring myself to even wash the dishes without feeling sick. Many people advise me to get a divorce right away, but I have a whole list of reasons why I'm not ready to take such a step yet. First, if it wasn't for our son, I would have filed for divorce immediately. Compared to my own efforts, she does an excellent job of raising him. The pain I'm experiencing is beyond comprehension, but watching her reaction to my suffering, the question arises. Is she experiencing even greater torment than I am? She cries so much, it's just unthinkable. If I hadn't witnessed it myself, it would be hard for me to believe it. It looks like her face hasn't dried out since the day everything collapsed a month ago. Being a doctor, she has the opportunity to leave me if she wants to. She had the money to leave without any financial difficulties. She could easily find another man, and even if she quit her job, her wealth would be enough for both of them. Moreover, she was willing to take all the blame on herself. She was trying to put herself and another man on public display, and I mean absolutely everyone. I had to step in and prevent her from telling our family about it, including the family of another man. She even tried to talk about her affair at her former place of work, at the hospital, when she quit. I had to accompany her everywhere so she wouldn't reveal the truth. In this close circle of people, such a revelation would be the death of both her and her lover. The consequences for her partner in an affair would be especially severe, which could ruin his professional future. As for the evidence, I believe I have all the emails. After she told me about her infidelity, I carefully looked through all the correspondence, and everything completely coincided with her story. It is clear from the letters that she has already left her lover. But during my studies at the medical institute, there was a huge pressure between us, and I began to move away from her more and more because of the difficult coursework. After plunging into depression, this man suddenly approached her, who repented of what he had done and said that he had changed. Although she initially rejected his advances, he persisted in having a conversation with her. Gradually, the partner began to praise her for becoming the best version of herself, which led to subsequent events. Meanwhile, I was busy with academic problems and didn't pay enough attention to her. Not knowing how events will develop, I consider it necessary to take at least a month to clear my mind. I want to take some time to think about my options before making a decision, because I want to minimize the consequences for my son. I understand that some may consider me a weakling, but I will do everything possible to maintain stability in our house. Having a 1-year-old son who depends on me, I try to fulfill all duties, despite the unbearable pain. I am determined to make the best choice for my child. My wife, who has moved away from our relationship, is begging me to quit my job to save our marriage. Fortunately, we have enough savings to last about a year without a job. We live in a house that was purchased for us by her parents. Fortunately, we have minimal debts. As an example, we can cite a situation when she returned to her hometown in connection with work, and after a 2-week stay in the hospital, she returned to spend time with me. During the same period, she entered into a relationship with her lover. I understand that she behaved terribly, and I admit that I am in an extremely susceptible state, but nevertheless, I guarantee that I will give preference to what is best for me and my child. Along the way, I'm just looking for advice from all of you. In 2015 year, our relationship began with the fact that she showed more interest in me than I did in him. In 2018, she gave in to her ex and started an affair. But in 2019, we decided to get married, and soon after that, we found out that we were expecting a baby. We made a deliberate decision to put our relationship first and refrain from any relationship with her ex before the wedding. Unfortunately, in 2020 year, he ended their relationship. So to clarify, in 2019, we got married, and soon after that, we got pregnant. After carefully considering my well-being, I made the difficult decision to put myself first and refrain from intimate relationships before the wedding. But it seems that my partner did not share this decision, continuing to receive affection from her lover. Fast forward to January 2021 year, she abruptly ended her relationship with him, and in June of the same year confessed to treason. Briefly about the situation. Next week, we agreed to get tested for STDs, but little has changed, except for her noticeable weight loss. It's hard for both of us to eat and sleep properly. A few minutes ago, I informed her that I would be seeking legal assistance. I decided to explore my options and recommended that she do the same, but her reaction was very sharp. She became hysterical. She refused the services of a lawyer and begged me to consider contacting a psychologist. In response, I suggested that she go to a therapist herself. In addition, I made it clear that I could no longer live in the same bedroom with her because of her inability to understand that it was unpleasant for me to even touch her, let alone intimacy. This situation often leads to the fact that at night, I am woken up by her attempts to initiate such contacts, which only increases my feeling of nausea. Trying to throw me off balance and inflame my desires, she stubbornly ignores my repeated requests to stop such actions. Constantly doubting whether my love for her had weakened, I reached the limit and abruptly left, leaving her lying on the floor. She's currently sobbing in frustration in our bedroom. As soon as my wayward wife comes to her senses, I will start a conversation to determine the timing. I am considering discussing with my wife a DNA test for our son, as it is more reliable compared to a lie detector. At the same time, the following details may be superfluous. Our marriage was concluded in June 2019, and during that time we had intimacy 2-3 times a day when she was with me. Although she always wanted daily intimacy, I sometimes felt exhausted. If I couldn't perform in the second round, she expressed disappointment. Sometime in September-October 2019, she had a vacation at work. We engaged in intimate life often, almost daily, as she had a strong desire to get pregnant. She even expressed a desire to have several intimate contacts during one day. We did pregnancy tests about once every 3 days, and every time she got a negative result, she was disappointed. But in the end, the test came back positive, and I firmly decided that this was my son, especially considering his striking resemblance to me. Despite this situation, I don't want to tell everyone about her affair, because I don't want to become the subject of gossip in our circle. Besides, I prefer not to seek medical help. When we were both in medical school, she often cast glances at me during classes, in the laboratory, and even in the hospital. This happened so often that it became obvious to me and our colleagues that she feels sad if I don't pay enough attention to her. I remember one time when I was absorbed in reading in the classroom, and she was talking to our classmates outside the door. I saw one of our classmates laughing, and when I looked up, I saw that they were teasing her. She seemed to be on the verge of tears, perhaps because I declined her invitation to chat. She was constantly striving for physical intimacy. She often wanted to hold hands and be in my company. Even if I mentioned something as mundane as grocery shopping, she would ask to join me and express disappointment if I refused. Her insecurities stemmed from her bad girl self-image, and she often wondered why I found her attractive. Knowing about her turbulent past filled with excessive partying, she often inquired about my thoughts when I preferred to remain silent. Our bond was unbreakable, which became obvious even in the last stages of our relationship, when we willingly shared passwords from social networks. When her sister got pregnant at the tender age of 18, I offered her my support and help. I genuinely cared about her, and it seemed to me that she reciprocated me. In moments of conflict, she always showed a willingness to be stronger and to reconcile. When I was angry with her, she had a deep fear of losing me. After that, I would reassure her that I don't intend to do this, but all this time I perceived her not as intrusive, but as deeply loving and perhaps unusually attached. I gave examples of her past obsessive behavior to show her deep love, which is completely different from the actions of a person involved in a love affair with another. The case when she almost burst into tears was an isolated one, despite the fact that she wears glasses every day. She considered herself an ill-mannered person, which was at odds with my reputation as a good-natured person. I have no flaws. I rarely participate in parties and have never perceived her as anything other than respectable. Moreover, it was I who decided to refrain from physical intimacy before marriage. Thus, her comparison was directed rather at herself and her actions. In addition, she occupied the place of honor of salutary in our medical class, which testified to her exceptional abilities to study. In our class, she was never perceived as a bad girl. In such qualities as patience, kindness, attentiveness, she surpassed me without difficulty. Once a month, she came to her hometown, since we decided to settle here permanently, and we were already offered a job in this place. While I was still studying elsewhere, she had already accepted a job offer in advance. Currently, we live in her hometown. Our financial situation is stable. During the betrayal, she felt guilty. As a result of a complex combination of emotions, she realized that she was attracted to AP, and she could not resist him. The mixture of happiness and dependence consumed her, as if she could not pronounce the word no in the presence of AP. The fear that I would find out about the affair served as a catalyst that consolidated the secret relationship. She felt a deep sense of weakness and inability to refuse AP's courtship. Even after AP dumped her, she spent a whole year trying to rebuild a relationship with him. The disbelief that all her efforts were in vain, that she betrayed me in vain, haunted her. During this time, her mind became entangled in illogical thoughts, and instead of relief that the novel was over, she experienced an inexplicable sense of loss. Trying to justify her actions, she sought meetings with other men, but when the partner in the affair expressed a desire to resume their romance, she found the strength to refuse. At least, that's what she claims. In addition, she explained that her decision to hide it from me after the end of the novel was due to the fact that at that time, she felt used. For several months after she decided to break off contact, her lover was unpleasant to her. On the other hand, I have to say that my son is the most adorable creature on earth. I would do my best for him, be it reconciliation or divorce. She confessed her unfailing love to me, claiming that I am someone she truly values. But at the same time, she recognized herself as an inferior, confused, and weak person. She regretted that she had not had the strength to resist the advances of other men all this time. In desperation, she longed to have a child from me, believing that this could be the impetus for release from the prison of infidelity. These were the complex emotions and desires that she shared with me. Today, before I went to work, she took the time to share with me a condensed version of her emotions and thoughts during the betrayal. For 2 hours, she gave me a complete picture of her state of mind. According to her, towards the end, I encouraged her to get together and take on more responsibilities around the house, especially when it came to our child. She apologized and admitted that she was amazed at my ability to cope with my own pain and be responsible at the same time. Trying to improve our relationship, she mentioned that she had a book about healing a spouse after infidelity and said she was going to start reading it. I asked her to stop being too tearful, which was pretty hypocritical on my part, because I couldn't control my tears either. In response, she said she was ready to become more emotionally stable. Then I told her that the probability that I would not consider reconciliation was about 85%. Surprisingly, she took the news quite calmly. But at the same time, she openly declared her desire to publicly shame and disgrace her lover, including herself, in order to show her firm devotion to me. When I left, I strictly advised her never to do this. She promised to clean up the house while the child sleeps. That day, she didn't get in touch. Disappointed and offended, I poured out my feelings to her in the evening, saying that my heart seemed about to burst. At the same time, I imagined that her lover was complacently reveling in his imaginary victory over me. We were both overwhelmed with emotions, and eventually I dozed off. When I woke up, I saw that she was gone. I had a feeling that she still got in touch with her lover and violated the do not contact rule. This news made me lose control of myself, but it turned out that she secretly approached her lover's boss with printed evidence to expose their affair. She even threatened to hire her own lawyer and publicly tell about the firm's illegal actions if they did not take tough measures against him. Unfortunately, her professional reputation suffered as a result, and now we are dealing with the consequences. As a result of her actions, her lover was dismissed from his position. There is a high probability that he will lose his license to practice medicine in our country. Unfortunately, in a fit of anger, I turned to my lawyer friend and received divorce papers while my wife was not at home. When she returned home, the divorce papers were already waiting for her, putting us in a difficult position. Despite the fact that she wanted to raise my self-esteem, it led to the opposite result. We suddenly found ourselves on the way to divorce. I can't help but feel remorse towards her. Despite my doubts, I still decided to act. According to my lawyer, the earliest date for the completion of the process is January next year. It goes without saying that this had a huge impact on my spouse. She drove home that day with a sense of pride, wanting to prove how much I meant to her. She didn't know what was ahead of her yet, but it was after the start of the divorce process that I regained my self-confidence. I feel like I've been released from prison. I feel a newfound sense of strength because the influence of betrayal on my state of mind and train of thought has weakened. At the moment, I manage my own life and make decisions. This is an incredibly pleasant feeling that allows me to fully accept my role as a divorced man and father. It's been about a month since I started the divorce process, and about 2 weeks ago, my wife attempted to harm herself. We are currently still in the hospital, where I am constantly by her side to reduce and prevent any further thoughts of self-harm. Our son is being cared for by his grandparents at my wife's parents' house. At first, I feared the worst and thought she wouldn't survive, but her vital signs remain stable, and it looks like she'll pull through. However, her mental state is still unstable and unstable. As for my reaction to her attempt, it was violent and deeply disturbing. She's a doctor, so if she really wanted to get out of this situation, she would have the means and opportunities for this. It is likely that she would have been successful in her endeavors. Therefore, it is difficult for me to believe her statement, especially considering her profession. If she really wanted to cut herself out of life, she would have taken appropriate actions because she has the understanding and knowledge for this. So this is apparently another attempt by her to manipulate me and bring me back under her control. Now let's delve into this story and analyze some of its components. I don't usually do analysis, but in this case, I feel compelled to do it. I understand that our son cannot be left with her. I am not sure that she is mentally healthy and will not harm the child. During the divorce process, I will seek full custody of my son. In the meantime, I try to support her emotionally, often visiting her in the hospital. It's been 3 months since then. How she physically harmed herself. She continues to be constantly monitored by doctors. A month ago, she was transferred to a psychiatric ward and is being treated with psychotropic drugs. Her condition is only getting worse, and it is unknown whether she will return to a normal mental state. Our son misses his mother very much, which breaks my heart. He lacks her love and care. But while her parents are helping me, they are taking care of our son. All I know is that if she returns to her previous mental state, I will break off all communication with her. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Put likes and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.